Happy Friday, Wildcards! We have another awesome episode of Office Hours today with the inimitable Scott Woodard.
Hello,
Welcome,
hello.
welcome, sir.
I was rocking out to that theme. It's pretty
Right?
amazing.
It's fun. It's a good little piece. Like I'll keep it. I'll keep it. Finding a different one would be hard. But so, sir, you have written for a number of awesome, huge properties, like big name things people would recognize even.
Yeah,
And
I think so. I think so.
of all the properties you've gotten to write for so far, what's a memorable moment or honorable moment? What sticks out in your head as one of the cool properties that you've written for? We'll run through a bunch of them, but what comes to mind is the first one that you'd like to talk about?
Okay. Let's see. uh, Doctor Who, obviously. I'm a lifelong Doctor Who fan, and when I had the opportunity to write for Doctor Who, that was pretty amazing. So, for those who don't know, we've talked about this before, but I wrote three audio adventures for Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who stories. I think I'm one of like 5 Americans who've actually written licensed official Doctor Who, but that was pretty amazing. Flash Gordon. We'll just jump ahead to the Pinnacle stuff. Again, I was a Flash Gordon fan as a little kid, so Flash has always been a part of my life. Go Flash, go! So when I had the opportunity to write that, that was pretty awesome as well. And gosh, what else? I mean, writing my book, I say mine, it was co-authored. The book, Cinema and Sorcery, was pretty epic too. If you're not familiar with that book, that is a massive tome that I co-authored about the history of sword and sorcery movies. So that was fun because not only was I writing about stuff that I grew up with and adored, some of them I didn't necessarily adore, but I also had a lot of chances to interview directors and actors and producers and composers and just had a really great time sort of dipping into that universe as well. So yeah, I've played in a lot of fun little universes and Dark Shadows. Yeah, I mean we can go on and on and on about that kind of stuff. So yes, I've written a lot of cool stuff. I've been very lucky, and hopefully I'll get chances to write even more cool stuff down the line.
Dark Shadows is a cool one. I'll inject a personal anecdote. So back in like I think the early '90s, I was still a kid. They tried to do like a reboot Dark
Oh yeah,
Shadows on
with Ben
TV.
Cross. Yep.
Yeah, and my mom was into it because there was an older Dark Shadows that was more part of her generation. So that was like the first kind of like weirdness, coolness I could watch with mom. I was like, Dad, yeah, Dad would always take me to the movies. You'd go to the movies with Dad. So we'd see Indiana Jones and all that stuff. But like, Mom was not into the geek stuff. But like Dark Shadows, she was into. So
Oh yeah.
that one has a special place in my heart. So it's like that was my kind of first entry into, the vampire fiction and Victorian horror. And and that one
Yeah.
it was done well. It was a cool series. So
Well, the
um,
original series. I mean, I'm fortunately I can say that I wasn't there for the original run of that show. That was in the '60s. But when they went into syndication some years later, I think they used to air it in my neck of the woods around. It was like lunchtime. I would say that noon to 12:30 or something like that. So when I was a kid, I would rush home from playing with my friends to sit with my mom and watch the original Dark Shadows. So I grew up watching that one as well. And when I had a chance to actually write an audio drama based on that series with actors from the original series, that was pretty awesome. So I have a little cameo in that one Dark Shadows play that I wrote, and then I also have a little cameo in one of the Doctor Who's that I wrote. But people are hard pressed to find me. It's like you don't really have to listen close to hear me, but that's kind of fun.
that's awesome. So yeah, there will be a fine Scott portion of the
It's like
interview,
Waldo.
right? We help
Where's
you out like
Woodard?
right. Here's a preview one of those.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, this is a good one. So yeah, just look for the red circle. That's me back there.
so this is actually pretty awesome. So was this actually the premiere where the person in the row behind you got a little too much fun at the bar beforehand and kind of ruined the day for everybody in the row in front of them?
I don't know that story.
Oh no,
Um,
there's definitely a story. I'll pull up the Facebook post, but it sounds like
okay,
there's
you'll
there's
have
there,
to.
there was definitely a Scott went to cool premiere thing and got vomited on story somewhere on your Facebook.
Oh no. You know what? No. I mean, I've been vomited on. Oh
Yeah.
no. You know what? Okay. I wasn't vomited on. I was vomited next to,
Okay,
and
good,
that was
good.
at Star Wars Celebration last year.
Okay.
We were actually on the sort of the big Mandalorian panel, sitting in the audience, and a guy next to me, who either had eaten the wrong thing or had too much to drink or whatever. He was in a X-wing fighter costume as well, and he horked up into his helmet. So, but yeah, that was horrifically unpleasant. And so as soon as that happened, we all just instantly stood up and started shuffling to the aisle. We were like, "We're done. We got to get out of here."
We love you, Mando, but yes, we cannot say it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. The one that you just showed the picture of, that was actually sort of the cast and crew premiere at the El Capitan Theater here in Hollywood. So yeah, I was sitting back there with my wife, who works on all these wonderful shows, and they happened to take that selfie. Well, Pedro took that selfie and could just spot me off in the distance there.
I mean, it's rare to have someone that said they could photobomb the Mando cast.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? So this is your lovely wife. So tell us, like, what does she do? Like, what's the?
Yeah. So that is my better half. That's my wife Tamara, and she works in the film industry and TV, obviously. We both met working in the film industry. Actually, we met working on a Roger Corman movie called Carnosaur 2. So that'll take you back in time a little bit. But if you want
Did you do puppetry on that one? Were you doing puppetry at the time?
Yeah, I was hired to build an animatronic Velociraptor. Now, this is a Roger Corman movie. If you know Corman, you know that it's like D-grade filmmaking. And fun little side story before we go back. I'm brought into this shop, and I'm told, hey, listen, we need an animatronic Velociraptor. We need it to have, eye blinks, and the mouth needs to open and close, and the head needs to turn and go up and down, and we want to put it on a mobile base so we can move it around the set.
Project Clever Girl.
Yeah, right. The Jurassic Park knockoff. And so I'm meeting with the head of the shop, and I'm like, yeah, well, how much money do we have to build this thing? And he says, we're looking at about $1,000. And I'm like, $1,000 for an animatronic Velociraptor. Okay. And he's like, well, you can, pull apart any of the old puppets and stuff we have in the shop and, cannibalize everything that's here to try to make this thing work, which I wound up doing. And I'll tell you that it worked when it was done. It did work. It looks okay. But after every single take, it would break. Something would break on that, and I would have to run in and open it up and fix it, and then we'd roll it back out and do another take. And so, but it got done. I mean, the movie is out there. If you ever want to check out Carnosaur 2, that's our movie. That's what we met on. And so, yes, I used to do practical special effects, and then sort of got out of it. And then my wife continues to do that. And
was she with like the Stan Winston studio?
Yeah, she's a regular at Legacy Effects, which used to be Stan Winston's, and she was basically a lifer there. She's been there for many years. We actually went to Stan Winston's funeral. That's a pretty wow of a story too. I mean, I won't go into too many details about that, but I was sitting next to Sigourney Weaver and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Steven Spielberg were giving eulogies, and so it was a pretty big event. I mean, it was pretty well attended.
So I think Sigourney is our Kevin Bacon between you and me, because I met Sigourney running around my neighborhood once.
Oh, how funny.
We lived, I think I told this on stream before, but I lived in the same neighborhood growing up as the Kieslings, who were the inheritors to the Morris Foundation, and the Morris Foundation is the one who paid for Diana Fossey's research in what became the movie Gorillas in the Mist, and then Sigourney Weaver played Diane Fossey in that movie. And so because Diane Fossey was obviously deceased by the time they made the movie, the Kieslings were part of the tell us who this woman is, but we need to get to know who she is. And so Sigourney stayed with them, and then she became friends with them. So she'd come back, and every time she stayed in Denver, she'd stay with them. So one day I was just walking my dog around the neighborhood, and this woman was jogging. And I'm like, wow, I don't know. I don't recognize this new neighbor. It was just kind of a closed, neighborhood. So it wasn't too much, I'm like, that looks like, is that? I'm like, oh my God, Sigourney Weaver. Is she just ran on by? So that was
how funny.
That was my run-in with them. Not as cool as yours, but
small world, right?
Right. So of all the people that have a one-on-one connection with. So I think your wife also worked on speaking of Sigourney Weaver, the new Avatar movie, right?
Yeah, she's worked on both of them. There are practical elements in those films. For example, in the first one, and I think in the second one as well, anytime they were on flying or swimming rigs, so they're like standing up on the the flying creatures, they actually built. If you look at the behind the scenes stuff, you can see they built things they could stand on and actually be shifted around. The actors could be, for motion capture, they could be manipulated on these things, and so she built some of that stuff, and also some of the dreads, so that the Navi could have actual hair. So they built like these wigs of, fake dreads they could track in the computer. So she built some of those
cool.
headsets as well. Yeah. So she works on all sorts of amazing stuff. Obviously, Mandalorian and Ahsoka and all these other great shows. So.
I mean, yeah. So for folks who don't know, she pilots like the most famous character in the world right now, Grogu.
She's one of the puppeteers on Grogu. She puppeteers a lot of droids. Max Rebo, who was in the Book of Boba Fett, that was her. She was in the suit.
So she was in the suit for that. That is actually.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah. That was my wife.
so your wife got blown up with Jennifer Beals, right? Like that is
she didn't get blown up.
Oh, no, Max Rebo survived.
Max was not in the bar when that exploded.
There's a chance for. Okay, cool. That's job security. There's a comeback possibility right there.
Or did he blow the place up? That's the other theory.
Disgruntled musicians, you never know. Right? Don't forget to tip your musicians, people. Like everyone tips the bartenders, but no, tip your musicians too. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So like of all the, let me see what other kind of cool. I think I pulled a picture from your youth for your Doctor Who cred. Like,
oh, yeah. How funny! Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that. You still have all your hair. I know Alan, I think, and John Doom were also commenting on our inherent jealousy of keeping your illustrious locks.
I have a lot of it. This is a fun little story on this photo. So this was about 1985. So you can tell I was a Doctor Who fan for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, I think I first started watching Doctor Who when I was, well, it would have been about 76 or so, I think, if we go back in time that far. And so there was a convention in my hometown. I'm originally from Rochester, New York. I don't know if that means anything to anybody here, but so this convention came to town, and Colin Baker, who was the Sixth Doctor, was the guest, as you can see in that photo. And I got to work at the con. I was actually working at one of the retail booths or something, and I got to get that picture. And then many years later, I actually got to write for Colin, because the first audio drama I wrote was called The Juggernauts. It's a Dalek story. And I flew to London for the recording of that, and I brought that photo with me, or a printout of that photo, and showed it to him, and he thought it was great. It was like, wow, the boyhood dream comes true. Is that thunder?
Yeah. So sorry folks, if I pop out, we are getting more. It's hailing and raining now, and we're getting more precipitation than we normally get an entire year in the last hour, and so it looks like a snowstorm outside, but like. I know you wouldn't believe me, so I actually went out and grabbed a bowl of this just in case. But if my internet comes out, it's not because I'm not enthralled by and entirely jealous of all of Scott's things, but like this is the hail that is
so
going on outside that I went and grabbed a bowl of. It's like, nice pea-sized stuff. So that's what's going on.
85 and sunny here in sunny Los Angeles, California.
So jealous. so jealous. Although I guess you could never do the like, I'm sorry I'm late for work, it was the weather, right? Like that's
no, that doesn't work. I don't think kids really get snow days here either.
Everyone thinks snow days are great. I got one in my entire career because the superintendent of the district I was in, the bastard somehow had a Hummer. I don't know how he afforded a Hummer being a superintendent of a school district, but I guess maybe they get paid a lot more than teachers. And he's like, if I can get to school, and he lived 2 blocks from the school. So I was like, really, buddy? You have a Hummer and you could just like drive over your backyard. But he's like, if I can get to school, you can get to school. And so never. We got one go home early day, and the go home early day was just because they need to send the bus drivers home at the right hour. So they started, the elementary school goes home early, and then they trickle back up. But, oh, here we go. This is the Max Rebo. Oh my God.
So that was at Celebration, Star Wars Celebration last year. They had this incredible walkthrough display of actual props and costumes and things from the shows, both Mando and Boba Fett. And of course, that's my wife posing in front of herself. So there's Max back there.
That is super sweet. And then I promise that this might have been Celebration. I don't know when you took this picture, but we teased right before the stream that you have vanquished one of the most infamous sword masters.
Yes.
Known to man.
That's Brendan Wayne. He actually plays Mando most of the time that you see Mando on screen with this helmet. It's between him and Lateef, who does a lot of the parkour stuff, the really elaborate jumping. But Brendan is mostly Mando. And Celebration was adjacent to Disney, and we met up with Brendan, and I whipped out my lightsaber, and he had the dark saber, and I think I won.
You have the high ground. You do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that was last year. That was fun.
The only other cooler encounter with a swordmaster in all of moviedom that I think would be if you ran into Mandy Patinkin and you had a sword on you as well.
Yeah.
Like that's the only other one. Like
he's in New York though. Yeah, we don't cross paths too often.
I don't think he carries a sword around with him either. So
I doubt it.
Get that awesome shot. Like, oh my god, that's. So
I think
cool.
It was just because Celebration was going on that there were people with lightsabers and dark sabers that we were able to grab some and pose for the photo. So.
But it's still super cool. I'm totally jealous. That's a lot of fun. Like, I mean, so what is it like with showbiz people who are the engineer part of the? And there's a whole lot of engineering. It's amazing how much work and kind of behind the scenes goes into making kind of movie magic. It's like it's not magic. It's hard work, people. It's a lot of hard work. What's it like with those people? Like just being part of the community and the. I know there's a writer's strike going on now and all that kind of good stuff. It's like it's an interesting part of people focus a lot on like the big stars, but there's just a whole lot to the industry that there's industries underneath the, that's like what is it part kind of like moving in those circles and living in the area and how does that work out?
mean, if you're not a celeb, if you're not, a on-screen actor or something like that, and I mean like one of the leads or something like that, then you're just a neighbor or a friend. I mean, we all kind of get together and meet up for lunch, and we have some of the people who've worked on the shows that you would know. I won't necessarily drop names in these cases. Have been over to our house and played with our cats, and we just it's like we all interact that way. A lot of suit performers, a lot of puppeteers. We move in those circles for sure. You did talk about the strike. A lot is pretty slow right now, work-wise. Originally. We were going to be rolling in. I say we, not me, but they were going to be rolling into production for Mando season 4 in the next couple of months. Well, that's been pushed off indefinitely at this point. Hopefully by the end of the year. But yeah, there's WGA obviously is on strike. SAG has voted almost unanimously to authorize a strike, and my wife is in SAG, so it touches home pretty closely.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing like one of the images, like there was a strike. I mean, it was a previous strike even, but it had like little numbers all around, and then the numbers were like the different sub groups of organizers for the different like the prop people and the gaffers, and then I was like, God, there are just so many different career paths that it would take to put something on a screen. It's not obvious when all the marketing goes towards the 3 or 4 big names in every film. It's like, God, there's like that. And yes, you do see the credits at the end, but it's like those people all put in years of work for that movie, and then just how many there are. And it is kind of amazing just to think about that, how weird that industry is. Like it's a very cooperative industry, but it's also very asymmetric. And
totally, yeah. And of course, the one thing is we always stay and watch credits for most of the movies we see because we inevitably will see people that are friends of ours or family members in some cases, so we'll sit and applaud like the goofballs that we are. But yeah, like you said, there's so many different layers, there's so many different departments, there's huge amounts of personnel, and then of course there's also multiple unions as well that are working there. So that's one of the other things that comes up. My wife is also in 705, which is the costume or wardrobe union. So we all touch different. Everything intersects in different ways, but.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool stuff. So speaking of intersections and cool people, and like here's another one. Like a lot of there's so many people, like you mentioned, that you've done voice work before, and a lot of times, in the pre-internet days, no one knew what voice actors looked like. Like even like the city, maybe the Simpsons, people got into like Reader's Digest once. Like, oh, this is what Bart actually looks like, and oh, it's a girl. But this is a cool one. And so who are you meeting up with here?
Oh, that's Veronica. She was the voice of Ash in original Pokemon. And it was this was in Las Vegas. We were at a convention. If you just off to the if you're looking at this picture off to the left, would have been the table where my wife was signing. She does conventions now and does some signings. And Veronica happened to be there, and it was kind of a weird, almost like family reunion, because I had worked with Veronica at Kids WB for many years. I was a writer-producer at Kids WB for Warner Brothers. I was one of the people who actually launched that network. And so I interacted with Veronica all the time. I wrote copy for her daily practically because we promoted the heck out of Pokemon in those early days. And she was in New York, but we were on ISDN at the time, and I would direct her and write copy for her. And so yeah, we interacted on a daily basis. And so when I saw her, I mean, honestly, she gave me the biggest hug. I gave her the biggest hug. We were so excited to see each other. But yeah, I mean, that's another little side thing. Like for about 10 years, I was with Kids WB before the CW became a thing. There used to be UPN in the WB, and then they merged together and shaved off about half the workforce in both sides to make one company. And so yeah, a lot of us got let go, but for the chunk of those almost a decade, I was with Kids WB as a writer producer, won a whole bunch of awards there for my promos. And so if you grew up watching Kids WB, I know a lot of younger people come to me and always say, oh, I remember your stuff so vividly. We had some great times, and I wrote and directed amazing array of people. I mean, Mark Hamill for the Joker, and who else did I work with on a regular basis? I mean, I worked with Casey Kasem before he passed away.
The Voice. Oh my God.
Yeah, because he was still doing Shaggy, way back then. And gosh, I want to try to remember some other ones. I mean, we had Eric Idle came in because we were promoting Quest for Camelot, where he was one head of a two-headed dragon. It was like him and Don Rickles, if I remember right. And great little side story.
God, who would even put those two together? That is amazing. Don Rickles and a Monty
it's
Python
not a very
number.
good movie. It's not a very good movie, but we did do a tie-in with the network. But a little side story with Eric, because I'm sure people would appreciate this. Eric was in the booth. I had written a whole bunch of promo copy for him, and I consider myself a pretty decent writer. And Eric's reading this copy, and at one point he says, "Hey Scott, could I read this this way?" And I just turned to him, and I'll censor myself, but I said, "Eric, you can do whatever the F you want." Like, this is Eric Idle. He's asking me if he could do something differently with this copy, and I'm like, of course you can. It's like, you're a Python. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. So yeah, the list goes on and on. I mean, Maurice LaMarche and all the people from Futurama that everybody knows, and Rob Paulson, and Kevin Conroy, of course, who passed away recently. He was the voice of Batman in the animated series. Kevin was awesome. So many of those voice actors are just the greatest people. We had such a good time. One of the best ones was Jonathan Harris from Lost in Space. He was Dr. Smith, the original Dr. Smith.
Okay, nice.
And he used to do voice. He was a character on Freakazoid. And he would come in and just regale us with the craziest stories about Irwin Allen from his Lost in Space days. So I'm really, really honored that I got the chance to sit with him. I remember one day he literally held court in the audio booth, and we all sort of gathered around on the floor like story time, and he was just telling us these amazing stories. He was such a raconteur. It was just amazing.
Oh, that is so cool. I mean, I don't know, that is like, I mean, no wonder you literally wrote the book on fantasy and cinema, but it's just like those are awesome connections to history. I mean, I think we're feeling the similar kind of thing in RPGs, which are much younger. I mean, much younger. A century younger than cinema. But it's just like the fact that you've worked on Flash, and I think Flash has this deep history, right? It goes back as one of the even before Superman kind of thing. It's like it's
right.
Flash. It's
it was almost George Lucas's movie.
Right.
I mean, I write about that in the book, or at least one of my friends wrote about that in the foreword, is that George wanted to do Flash Gordon, but he couldn't get the rights because it was already in development hell. So it was eventually going to come out in 1980, a few years later, but yeah, so George wanted to do Flash, and he couldn't get Flash, so he said, "I'll do my own Flash." And he wrote this Luke's Star Killer thing. So
just a little thing that went nowhere. No one ever heard of it. Not a billion, 4 billion, 5 billion. I don't remember what they bought it for. 4.5 billion, whatever.
But you put them next to each other, and there's so many parallels. I mean, really, if you just look at sort of those old serials and realize how much he pulled into the Star Wars universe to make it feel like that. even the scroll. I mean, even the the scroll at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah.
It was in the original serials. They used to do those types of things.
Oh
So
god,
yeah,
that's
it's Flash is an amazing property, and I would it's sometimes very difficult to explain Flash to people, especially sort of the younger generation, because it's ubiquitous. Flash has influenced so much stuff out there, and of course when I wrote the game, my idea was to make sure that everything was represented. So the comics, the radio shows, the movie, the TV, the cartoon, the novels, everything is in that game. It took a lot of effort to research it and read everything. But it's funny how I went from a fan to, and I no qualms saying this, a Flash Gordon expert now because of writing this thing, because I just had to immerse myself into that IP for 3 years. It felt like 3 years anyway.
No, I mean that's amazing. I think we kind of talked about it. I think at some point there was a panel about kind of like writing for screen or writing and research in RPGs. I think we did it maybe for Halloween a couple years ago, but like that was a great panel. We kind of delved into more of those issues and just like what is it like just having to become a subject matter expert on something, and you even think like I have definitely seen other parts of the industry where you haven't even wondered, did the writers of the current reboot even reference or look up or know anything about the other one, or did they just by the name, right? And it's like that was not a problem with our Flash. That
no, it's all in there, and I believe I've mentioned this to some people before online in our chats, but Taika Waititi supposedly is developing a Flash Gordon feature or series. We're not sure exactly what will wind up happening here, if anything at all. I mean, it's just an option kind of thing. But we did get a box set, Flash Gordon role-playing game box set to Taika. So,
good deal.
The dream is I get that phone call. Hey Scott, you want to work on the movie?
Yes, I'm an expert. I know this stuff.
Yes, I could help.
Oh my god, yeah, he's doing some great stuff right now. So
yeah,
big fan. Okay, so one more little fanboy thing, because I don't know if you ever got to create for these events, but you got to meet them. So this is one that I'm like, oh my god, these two.
Oh yeah, those guys are great. I mean, that was a signing event, so I didn't really get to work with Simon or Nick, but I did get to. You know what? There is a sort of a fun little side thing to this. So obviously, I'm an enormous fan of both of them, and I love Spaced, and I love all the movies, the Coronetto trilogy. But I was actually in London when Shaun of the Dead premiered. Now, I didn't go to the premiere, but I did see it opening day in London, which was pretty rad. We literally landed and got to our bed and breakfast or whatever it was in London, and I had already looked up the nearest movie theater that was showing it, and we were tired off the plane and everything. I said, no, we're gonna go see this movie, because I was so anticipating it. And that was great. Another little side, if you don't mind, I'll share another fun little side Simon Pegg story. So we were at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, many years ago, and Simon was a guest at the con. I don't know what he was promoting. It might have been Shaun of the Dead, for all I know. And we're in our hotel, and there was somebody in the hotel, like just one door down, who had been buying toys, action figures and things, and just leaving all their empty packages in the hall, like piling them up the wall. And my wife at one point opened up the door because she heard someone out there, and it was Simon, and he was still living in England, and he was buying all these toys and trying to figure out how to pack them to bring them back with him when on the plane, and just leaving the packages out for the housekeeping to take care of. So that was hysterical. For at least 1 weekend, Simon was my neighbor.
I tell you, yes. Oh, yes. He was our neighbor in London. Yes, we had a nice little flat. Yes.
No, this was San Diego.
San Diego. Oh, yes. Yes. San Diego. Yes.
I haven't been there in a long time. That's something I'd like to go back to someday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so you've been to London, Lisa, multiple times. Right? Like there was a recent one. Were you like going before the signings? Well, talk about that. Like, where you been in the world, sir? Like, besides
all over. I've been to England a few times. My mother was born in England, in this little suburb called Hornchurch in Essex. So, for any of our UK viewers, I'm sure they know where that is. So yes, my mother was an Essex girl, That has a connotation. Anyway, so I've been there many times, and we have friends over there. We go to see who live primarily down in Devon, that part of the country. But we were in London last year for a convention, the London Film and Comic Con. Again, my wife was there signing, and we both caught COVID there. So,
Oh,
hooray! Let's see, where else have I been?
you just got back from Alaska of all places. How was Alaska?
Yes, that was awesome. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that was just like a family trip. We actually went up there with my father-in-law, who was originally from Alaska. He was from Nome and grew up in Anchorage. So we went up there mainly we were just there about a week in Anchorage and sort of the other areas around it. We went to Seward and Girdwood, but wow, it's amazing up there. And yes, I did see moose. They crossed in front of our car while we were driving through a park, and yeah, my God, they're huge. They're like dinosaurs. Did not see any bears. Kind of wanted to, but not up close, just off in the distance. But yeah, it is a beautiful state. I kind of really want to go back there. I did go to a game and comic shop while I was up there. It's called
Nice.
Bosco's. I'm going to promote them. But sadly, no Savage World stuff. But I did go in and we talked to the owner about Savage Worlds, and he says he definitely wants to bring it back in. So
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I'll get on the phone. That's my job now. I'm telling
Yeah.
Costco.
I'll get
We've
you
sent
your
our
number.
emissary. You must now purchase.
So yeah, Alaska was a lot of fun. Where else have we been recently? My wife, she was over in Germany to Dortmund Comic Con. She was in Ireland recently. So she's traveling a lot. She was just in Wichita last weekend for a convention. So now she's
Of all the
bouncing around
places
for
in
that. I know,
Kansas.
like it's not really exotic, but so she was there. I've been to Romania. I've been to.
Ooh.
I went to Czech Republic. I mean, I guess it's Czechia now. I'm not sure. All the names change. And my wife was actually shooting League of Extraordinary Gentlemen there. This goes back many, many years. And so I went over to visit and was there for about a week and a half. And that was an amazing city. So if you've never
They've
been
got some
there,
strong-
Prague is
Yeah,
amazing.
okay.
Yeah.
I need to. I've got ancestry there, and it's like I have yet to be. So I need to go check it out because.
Oh,
Did I just made it unintentional? Check it out. Oh, that's horrible.
check it.
Horrible.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the end of the show, folks. Thanks for
Right.
joining us.
There is no coming back from that one. Yeah, but it's beautiful, right? Like I mean,
Yeah,
just
it's incredible.
gorgeous and
Yeah.
Buddha and Pest and all that stuff. Yes, that's all on the Danube. Is just kind of an amazing little part of the world.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I love the fiction from there, like Castle Falkenstein, Victorian horror, and just all this cool stuff in that part of the world. So.
Right. Yeah, John. Prague is beautiful. You should check it out. Yep.
Thanks, John. John's gonna rub that in. We're playing Supers later on tonight, and
Oh, okay, great.
I'm gonna get Eastern European jokes the entire time now. I know. I can just tell.
Guaranteed. I didn't get
thanks
the
for
game
being
this
picky.
week. I'm bummed. So.
Yeah. Poland also needs Poland is definitely on the thing. Although I probably can't eat the pierogies anymore. Maybe I'll have to bring some insulin. But the pierogies. Pierogies. Anyway.
Yeah, my mother's side of the family. Well, her father was Polish, so growing up, we had a lot of Polish food. The family gatherings were amazing. So yes, I grew up with all that.
There's a different name, like it's either Palushkis or Polumkis or
Golumkis, yeah.
Golumkis and Kalushkis. Yeah, stuffed cabbage.
Oh yeah.
With meat. Oh. Yes, my grandma, the one who's like Czech, Ruthenian, whatever, she used to make stuffed cabbages, and that was like that is comfort food to me. That is the, whenever I'm feeling nostalgic, it's like let's go get some cabbage, some meat, and some paprika, and go to town. Good stuff. So okay, so along the vein of like the world travel, like what's your favorite foods, sir? What fuels the fire?
Well, I mean, I'm vegetarian, and have been for many years. I became a vegetarian in college. And it was for ethical reasons. So, I just love animals and I hate plants. So, so I like a lot of Asian food. I like Thai and Chinese and things like that. We have an amazing vegan sushi bar that's here, and their menu is gigantic. They do ramen and sushi, and their stuff is shockingly good, and it's gorgeous. Like, it's art. I'm always afraid to eat it. It's just so pretty. But I mean, I eat a lot of junk food too. There's no denying that. I mean, I'll take good pizza and pasta any day. Um, and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I don't think I really have a particular favorite. It rotates.
Do you still do dairy, or do you have to do cheese?
No, I do.
substitutes?
Yeah, I'm vegetarian. I'm not vegan, but
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like cheese substitutes are hard.
Yeah, I mean, I do use them. I have some in the house right now. But yeah, sometimes I just really crave some real stuff.
Yeah, when you said
cheese.
pizza, I'm like, yeah.
No, pizza's real cheese. Yeah,
right,
it's gotta have real cheese.
Yeah, I'm on like the no carb thing right now, and I'm off insulin, which is great. But they do. There's two types of pizzas. There's like you make chicken and cheese, and you like shred the chicken and you beat the crap out of it. You put it with cheese, and you make like the crust out of like chicken cheese, or you can do cauliflower, and it's just like neither one is pizza. It's
No.
I do miss the yeasty, doughy. Just anyways, enough about me.
That's all right.
But Thai food is good though. Thai food is always where it's at. I think
I have a visitor here.
Oh, tell us about the cats. Yes. Yeah,
So this is Ginsu. She's bipolar and may destroy me while I'm holding her. She's older. She's about I think 13 now, 12. But yeah, she's awesome. She's a pain in the ass. And then we also have another cat who will not show up on camera because she's so chicken. She's just scared of her own shadow. But she's like the sweetest cat we've ever had, and she's only a little over one. She's a young one. We lost another cat last year, and sort of brought her in as not a replacement. You know how it is. You just fill in the gaps, and they're all part of family. But yeah, I'm a lifelong cat guy. I just love cats. I love their independence and the fact that you just have no idea what they're thinking.
Well, and they are always thinking too. Like, I mean, the plot. Like, what? So is Ginsu, and what's the name of the other one?
Well, Maisie.
Amazing. Nice.
Yeah, Maisie or Maisie Moo. We also call her. Can I kind of swear?
No, yeah. It's Friday. No one.
Okay.
Friday afterwards.
We also call her Chicken Shit. In a loving way.
Cute. That's cute.
Yeah.
Yes, mine's a little shit, not a chicken shit. But yeah,
we all have little shits. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
John's asking if I have a regular gaming group. I do. Yes, I absolutely do. We game Thursday nights at a local game shop. It's a game shop that if you're online a lot, you may actually know of. It's called Geeky Teas and Games. They're here in Burbank, and I'm not promoting them. Like, I mean, they're a great shop, but they're pretty well known in a lot of gaming circles. Will Wheaton has promoted them and talked about them a lot and posed outside. They used to sell various attire and things, and I think Will did a promotional, almost like a catalog with his wife in the various costumes. They don't sell costumes anymore, but they do sell teas, and they do sell games and British import candies, and they adopt cats. But it's a fantastic store. We game there. We almost exclusively play Savage Worlds. Surprise, surprise. I'm trying to remember what we did last. We played Deadlands last week. We are doing some Blood Drive stuff right now with one GM, or Marshall, and then another one is running some other Deadlands thing, and then I run Pathfinder, and then we have another guy who does a homebrew Star Wars and a homebrew Star Trek. But it's all Savage Worlds. So if you're ever in the Burbank area on a Thursday night,
stop in. World of character.
Yeah.
Totally jealous. That's pretty cool. I mean, regular games are good things. Like I've been out of practice for about a year, and so the game I got with Sondum, I think let's see, is our game master in the chat? I haven't seen him yet tonight, but Ronnie is running that game, so maybe he's preparing. But we're running through. Necessary Evil, the first one. So,
but VTT, right? So.
Yes, all modernized and all goodness. And my character has almost died 3 or 4 times. He's totally a glass cannon. I think I mentioned the character I first made was literally a Nokia cell phone, and then another one of our players is a new player to Savage Worlds, rolled up kind of a hacker. I'm like, oh, these are too close, so I'll let you take the hacking realm, and I'll play the glass cannon. So he's now he's a knockoff on like Valentine, little like cherub angel. So he flies and has a bow, but he's very deadly with the bow. And he has a little butt window in the back, instead of a boob window, he has a butt window, and because his costume's pink, and he's totally on the flag spectrum. So,
Love it.
um,
Love it.
right. So, but apparently, though, I do not wait my turn efficiently enough to wait for our tanks to move up in front, and I get blasted. So, whatevs.
You gotta change your tune. You're doing it wrong.
Right. Right.
There is no wrong. There's
There
no
is no
right or
wrong.
wrong in role-playing games.
That is true. That is
But I
true.
also do a lot of well, I say a lot. I do a fair number of conventions when I can. There's 3 local ones here in LA that I do once or twice, and then I was just at KublaCon where we had a Savage Saturday night just a few weeks back. We had 5 tables going there, and likely we'll have 6 or 7 tables next year because all those tables were filled. And it was a terrific event, and actually I had shared this, but I have one of the challenge coins I was going to show off.
How big are they?
They're huge.
Oh.
So yeah, if we can see that, so yeah, they had it customized with our 20th logo, and then they have the KublaCon logo on the back. So
That's awesome.
These are beasts. So yeah, we got those. I mean, they really welcomed us. We had custom bennies. They were KublaCon themed, and so yeah, they went all out, and they're happy to welcome us back again next year. So, and I'll be at Gen Con in a few weeks.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So yes, if you're in Gen Con, like definitely hook up Scott. We should definitely do like a promo. Like you can sit around and like sign copies of Flash, and we'll
I'll sign anything you bring to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's
not
so
body parts. I don't know. That's a little
right. Yes. Asterisk. Please do not. Anything that cannot be shown in public, I will not put my pen on. Please. Yeah. I was like, did I pull one of the KublaCon photos? I didn't, but I did. I gotta show this. So it's a little bit of a backtrack, but here is you and your lovely wife's wedding. Oh my God, you guys are way too cool.
That goes way back.
Look at that. That is amazing.
Yeah, we designed our wear, and the person who's to my right officiated the wedding, and I wrote most of the vows and everything, and it was all medievally and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. It was 115 degrees that day, though. So
that's a lot of layers for that temperature.
Yes, and our memories of that day are really vague because we were just melting down. It was a rough day. It was in Rancho Cucamonga out here. There is a Rancho Cucamonga, yes.
I have been to Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, and it was like a artist's retreat that was built in the turn of the 20th century. So it was this beautiful outdoor venue with cobblestones and fountains and all sorts of stuff like that. And it was really, really, really a terrific venue, which would probably be wonderful in cooler temperatures.
There was just a slight breeze. There's like 1 or 2 of us are in corsets, please. Maybe 3. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, please breeze.
And that was mid-October. So that was pretty freaky to have those temperatures.
Yeah, I was there in college mock trial. They had like the national championships in Rancho Cucamonga, and so similarly to you, we were all overdressed, and it was hot. But we at least got to like retreat inside to the courtrooms versus having to. It looked lovely though, and no one looked as good on their wedding. I'm serious, like that the whole setup was like. I love gamer. I mean, nerd and geek just
nerd weddings, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's definitely nerd wedding. Like my cousin's getting married next month, and they're doing a pirate themed wedding at the Renaissance Festival here in Larkspur, and so I'm still trying to get my dad's wheelchair fitted out like a pirate ship with real working cannons, like maybe confetti cannons. But I'm like, we need cannons at a pirate wedding. There's no other way. So because I've got a little frame to build off with the wheelchair, I think that's my plan. Is we're gonna shiver some timbers. So.
We live in a condo right now, and but some years ago when we were renting a house here in Burbank, we used to do these really elaborate front yard Halloween haunts, and almost exclusively pirate themed. I'll drag up some pictures and share them with you at some point. But we used to get 1,000, 2,000 trick-or-treaters, just outrageous numbers of trick-or-treaters. And it was, I would customize. I did a custom score, so it was music and sound effects and lighting, and it was pretty elaborate. We were like the talk of the neighborhood. So I miss those days. As I say, we're in a condo now, so we can't really do that. but those days were amazing, and it was all pirate themed.
That's epic. Yeah, here we get. We don't get as much for Halloween, but we do get the winter lights decoration people who also put out like their own radio signals so you can listen to the music when you drive up to their places.
Right.
And Yeah. Oh, actually, I have a story for one of those, like real quick. So back when we lived in the place where Sigourney Weaver visited, whatever. Like there was the next neighborhood over was like for like uber wealthy people. I mean, you had to have millions and millions and millions. So those like closed, gated, whatever. But they all those houses, several of them would compete for like who would have the best lights. And I don't know if you guys have Hugh M. Woods. It was kind of like the Home Depot before Home Depot. Like the heir of that was had their house there, and because they own a construction business, like they would spend $100,000 or more on their lights, and then the neighbors kind of like had to spend something to like not be like no lights, right? And so we were coming home from a basketball game. I'm like, oh, let's go check out the lights in the neighborhood. And so we were driving around, and we stopped in front of one house, and then a guy was like, it looked like he was bending over fixing a light, and he stood up and he had a gun in his hands. And my dad's like, well, what the fuck are you guys doing? He's like, no, stop. I've been robbed. And so it turned out that the guy who owned the house there was a group called the Bueno Brothers who would follow you in your garage or your home after like when you and then like the garage door would go down. They smacked the guy behind the head, tied him up, and held him there the whole weekend while they cleared the guy's house out. And he had apparently we pulled up the 2 minutes in which he had gained consciousness, gotten out of the chair he was taped to, but his hands were still taped together, holding a gun. And so like we were trying to talk the guy down of like, don't have the gun here when the police show up, because these are like Cherry Hills police, and like they're like they don't deal with this kind of thing. They're going to shoot you, sir. Like they don't
Right.
respond. They don't deal with violent crime. So don't have the gun out when they show up. And sure enough, the cops show up, and the guy was on the ground and all that fun stuff. And so, anyways, that was
That's a
my
crazy story. Yeah.
crazy story. So we got a few more minutes. How okay? So here's a good question. Like I don't know if we ever talked about like how did you get into Savage Worlds? How did you meet Shane? How did you get like the first writing jobs? Like you've written for what, the Sixth Gun? Oh, Sixth Gun. They've got a Kickstarter going on right now. I'll have to go dig up the link for that because they're cool folks.
Yeah, Colin and Brian are awesome. That was the first Savage Worlds writing gig that I got, but I had actually edited some stuff for Pinnacle before that. I think the first thing I edited was about half of Hell on Earth, and then I edited Noir. So, but yeah, it goes back. For a few years we were living up in Portland, Oregon. Both my wife and I were working for Leica Studios. I was the puppet fabrication coordinator on Paranorman, and she was building puppets, fabricating puppets for. I mean, she worked on Paranorman and the Box Trolls, and gosh, I'm trying to remember some of the other movies. But like, she worked on 3 or 4 films up there, and I just worked on the one. But anyway, we were in Oregon, and there was a convention up there. I want to say, yeah, it's called Game Storm. I think that's the name of it. And Shane was a guest, and I was very nice, and then we just sort of hit it off, and we went out for a beer one night and dinner and chatted for a while, and just we just built up a really nice relationship and sort of kept in touch. And the next thing I knew, I was asked if I could help out with some stuff, and that's when I think I got those editing gigs. And then lo and behold, he got the Sixth Gun and said, "Hey, would you be interested in perhaps writing this?" And of course, I had never written a role-playing game before in my life. I mean, I had written RPG stuff, and I'd been, obviously I'd written my own stuff for years, and I had been editing with Triple Ace games for a while, so I knew how this stuff worked. And I absolutely said, yeah, I dove headfirst and wound up writing a lot of material for the Sixth Gun.
Yeah, we put out a lot of books for Sixth Gun.
People are surprised too. Like, I mean, a lot of it was electronic, so you don't have a lot of printed product. But if you go online and look it up, you'll just see image after image and cover after cover of all these things we did. We did supplements, and there were, of course, articles in the magazine at the time, and all sorts of great stuff. And it was, I think, one of the best relationships I've ever had writing for an IP. And in this case, we actually had the creators, like I said, Cullen Bunn and Brian Hurt, on board and on speed dial. On speed dial, nobody uses that. That's a term from another era. Never mind. You know what I mean? I could reach out to them anytime I wanted and ask questions. And I remember one of the most rewarding moments was after the game had come out. I was at a convention, and Charlie Chu from Oni Press, as well as Cullen, we were sort of all gathered around talking about the game. And Charlie said that he was so happy they brought me on to write the game. He said because I clearly got the Six Gun universe, and that was quite a compliment. I mean, I obviously, like I said about Flash earlier, completely immersed myself in all that stuff, and I read all the comics and all the side stuff, and just really absorbed it all, and took lots and lots and lots of extensive notes and built up a whole new way of looking at it. And but I think it came out great. I'm really proud of the Six Gun.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you have the unenviable task of like basically trying to create another Weird Western under the proviso of Shane Hensley of Deadlands, so it's got to be different enough and unique enough, and we also with these new creators, like that's walking a very fine line, sir. And
it was a strange one. I mean, if you ever heard Shane tell the story, he talks about how they had approached him at it was either Origins or Gen Con or something, or Comic Con maybe, and asked if Pinnacle would do something with it. And Shane said, well, no, we've got Deadlands. And they handed him a pile of graphic novels and said, well, you go and read them, and then you let us know. And Shane just fell in love with these books. And he said, yeah, we got to do this. We got to make this work. And we did do one sort of pseudo crossover with Deadlands. It doesn't really cross over, but the Deadlands logo is on the item. But we acknowledge that they do exist. I mean, the thing about the Six Gun, if you're not familiar with it, it's really about resetting and redoing reality. So it's totally fine to say that there was a Deadlands reality that might have gotten fired up. But yeah, that was a great time.
Yeah, I really like how the MacGuffins work, like the actual guns themselves as MacGuffins, and the plotline things, and like that's just a cool bit of storytelling that they managed to put together for that. So
each gun or each weapon can do different things. Some of them are outrageous, pestilence and all sorts of crazy stuff.
It's sort of like, I haven't read the manuscript for Deadlands Dark Ages yet, but I'm like, come on now, if we've got Excalibur and the Holy Grail and all that kind of stuff, like they need to learn from what Scott did with Six Gun, because that's.
Well, I have a Hex Slinger. I mean, honestly, I have a Hex Slinger in the Deadlands game that we play. And I have ammo whammy, and it hews pretty close to sort of the Six Gun weapons. Cool. You can change what your guns can do, and I love that. It's so much fun.
So, what characters do you normally like to play? Like now you mentioned, like you.
Well, I'm a lifelong Paladin fan when it comes to fantasy. I just, for whatever the reason, I've always loved Paladins. So I tend to lean to them if I'm doing any kind of fantasy gaming. With Deadlands, I like to mix it up. I just think that there's so much variety in the Deadlands universe, and they're all rewarding. Although I haven't really done any like martial arts characters, but I have done plenty of hucksters and plenty of just straight gunfighters and gunslingers. I think I've done a preacher and had a great time with that, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I love all those archetypes. I think they're a lot of fun to do. I don't normally lean into the magic using characters, which is funny that I would say that I love playing hucksters, but I guess I just love the way that hucksters work. And
they don't feel. I mean, they're magical without. I don't know. The tropes are just very different with hucksters. I agree with you in that sense. It doesn't feel like you're playing a wizard in the same kind of sense, or a mage, or even a cleric. But I mean, like my favorite X-Men was totally the Cajun-speaking
Gambit.
Gambit, loved Gambit, and I mean, my favorite was, can't remember the name. He doesn't feel like a wizard, right? He doesn't feel like but just the fact that those, I don't know, almost like a technology user in a certain way. And I think that there's, even though it's not weird science, but it just hews to different tropes, and I think that's interesting about those characters. And the sort of, that's the one thing I do still appreciate, that there are fans of the original Deadlands mechanics that definitely did mechanically distinguish your classes much more significantly than the more streamlined, smooth, Savage Worlds does.
Right. I still like to deal with the devil whenever I can.
Right. It's
so rewarding.
It's just fun. It's just fun, and it's just super poker themed. Like I definitely want to do or am doing a kind of tarot theme kind of takeoff on the old Deadlands, similar mechanic for a Renaissance game. It's just like, I want the crunch, even, it should feel like, unique and stuff like that. But
right.
So let's see. That's in so all around Deadlands. So we've talked like sci-fi. We've talked westerns, paladin and traditional fantasy. Any other? Here's a question. So we got a few more minutes. Is there a genre or a property you haven't written for yet that you want to cross off your bucket list?
Genre or property? Well, I've kicked this one around before. I really would love to do something with the tripods, the John Christopher series. I don't know how many people remember that, but there was a comic series. There was also a TV show that only ever did like the first 2 books. But it's an alien invasion story. Basically, the aliens reduce humanity to sort of a medieval state through their invasion, but people don't quite realize that these are aliens. It's one of those types of tropes. I've always loved that IP, and I'm a huge fan of the author anyway. John Christopher, he's written a lot of great stuff. John Wyndham is one of my other favorite authors who wrote a variety of very well-known properties like I was going to say the Midwich Cuckoos, but it's also the Village and Children of the Damned. People might remember those stories, but also like Blake 7. If anybody remembers that, the British science fiction series, I think would be a pretty wild RPG to do. There is I think like a fan created RPG out there of Blake 7, but I've never actually seen it. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of sort of the sort of core genres and things that I haven't really touched on.
The tripods one was interesting though, because I think from my own little experience, like his name doesn't come up as nearly as often as like Harlan Ellison or Fritz Lieber, but it's in that genre of really kind of cool, crunchy, like sci-fi, and that's.
Yeah, I mean, the comic appeared in Boy's Life magazine for a long time, an adaptation of the Tripod series, and there's 4 books that were written. I actually started when I was younger. I started writing a 5th book. It's like, oh, maybe he'll publish this. They'll publish this, but yeah, I mean, I guess those are like favorite books that maybe I would want to visit, or favorite TV shows. But I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that pops up, and I'm usually really, really surprised. I mean, obviously, I would love to write stuff for Star Wars. I'd love to write stuff for Star Trek, all huge IPs like that. I've written, obviously, Doctor Who, but I haven't written Doctor Who RPG stuff. Who knows what the future holds. But.
That's cool. Yeah, I wonder, is there a Doctor Who RPG?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, it's published by Cubicle 7.
Oh, Cubicle
7. Yeah, they just released a brand new core book, so it's got Jodie on the cover.
Oh, nice.
So it's going pretty strong. Yeah. There's something for everybody out there. Obviously, Alien, and Alien is my #1 movie of all time. I haven't had a chance to write for Alien, but Dune.
I've heard good things. I've heard Dune is my wheelhouse. I love Dune. I have heard the Alien game is really good. That it's like it feels like the movie. I think the other comment was like, I don't know how you'd ever have a campaign out of it, because again, everybody dies. Or everybody would want, like it's kind of, but it's like
Space Marines bug hunting, I guess. But yeah.
That's I do love it. To me, it's very interesting just seeing how RPG authors, and I think it's kind of one of the topics of one of the panels you did, which is like RPG writing is just so different than every other form of writing. And the considerations are different, and so you do get this freedom to be creative, but it's also the challenge of translating and making things interesting, even with properties that are
playable,
right? Gameable, playable, exactly.
So Pinebox, yeah, I mean, we didn't get to talk about it, and we're wrapping up, but Pinebox Middle School hewed very close to my childhood, and that was a whole another thing. But we can talk about that the next time I'm on Office Hours.
We should. Yes, we are. We never have enough time because we are at our hour.
So much to talk about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Scott is never a boring guest. No worries about not having enough good stuff to talk about. So, I mean, we got in Mandalorian, projectile vomiting, British stuff, Doctor Who, like.
Latecomers are going to be really confused. You'll have to go back and watch the archive video.
I did. So when you mentioned the guy like barfed in his hat, like in his costume hat, like I used to drive for Lyft and Uber, and I had $1,000 ride. And the way I made $1,000 on this ride was picking up a guy at 2 a.m. after clubs close, the bars close, right? Like, so this is usually this is the bad ride of the night, right? This is the one if you're going to get someone who's, whatever. So it was two friends trying to put a third friend in the car, and he was not even sober enough to really get himself in the car. And they just kept throwing $20 bills in so I could wait. And my guy's like, I got to go. It's been like 20 minutes trying to get this guy in the car. Like, I'm figuring, it's not going to be a great ride. They just kept throwing 20s in the car. And I'm like, fine. I picked him up, like, really, guys, just here, take the cash back, whatever. Like, this guy's, he needs an ambulance. He doesn't need a ride home. And finally, the guy kind of like, they like give him like a cold drink of water, and they shove him in the car. And it was a long ride. And halfway through, we're on the highway, and the guy just takes off his baseball cap, fills it, opens my window, and throws the whole hat out the window. And I got a $200 cleaning fee from the stuff that didn't quite make it out the window. But it was $800 by the time they were done, apparently. And I didn't even realize that they just kept throwing money in the car. And so after the guy got out, and I'm like, I'm there, right? It was a good way to end the night. And I'm at a spray and wash place, spraying off the inside and the outside of the. Luckily, it was a rental, so it wasn't mine. I had to keep the car, but. Yes, I ended up counting, and I was like, wait, there was $800 in 20s plus the $200 vomit cleaning fee at the time. So it was like $1,000 ride. Anyways, not nearly as fun and as exciting as like a guy in a Star Wars costume at a Disney,
celebration.
Disney base. But, hey, vomiting in hats, people. Anyways, enjoy your weekend, guys. We'll have Scott on again because Scott's always a good time. We've got a Kickstarter running right now. I'd be remiss if I didn't pop a link in just before we go. Let me go see. Let me pull it up. So we are doing $20 players books, which are awesome. They're in soft cover. We are over 80,000 right now.
90. We're at 90.
Oh, at 90. Geez. So I think in momentarily when I'm off the stream, we'll post our next stretch goals. And we've got some cool merch on the horizon and some voting on which kind of edge cards to kind of come in. But let's see. I will put this link in the chat. But yes, you were correct. We are at 90,322 and 938 backers. So awesome. Hopefully we'll get to 1,000 before the weekend's done. But yeah, head on over, check out the Kickstarter. It's the 20th anniversary celebration. We're doing $20 players books. The pledge is $25, but you get the stretch goals with that. But add-on books are $20. There's a special edition of the 5th printing of Suede with a cool foil stamp. There's a new accessories box, which if you didn't get in on the essentials box, that's the way to get into the bennies, the counters, the funny shaped, round shaped blast and burst and cone templates, the status tokens, action cards, power cards, new dice, conviction tokens. Not quite as cool as the Flash conviction token because that one's awesome, like rocket. But also the cool new magnetic boxes. And so we have 2 of them in the campaign. One is the players box, which is currently getting like very, very full of awesome little add-ons like name plaques and cards and advanced things. So anyways, a bunch of cool stuff for players and game masters to get on the campaign. So check that out. Otherwise, play some Savage Worlds this weekend, folks. And we will see you next week, probably as early as Tuesday. And but yeah, play some Savage Worlds and enjoy your weekend. Have a happy 4th. And otherwise, we'll see you guys then. Cheers, folks.
Thanks all.